Tampering day one is happening. The 49ers not doing a lot on the surface, but are the 49ers doing some things behind the scenes? Do we now have a clear picture of what could happen with the 49ers? Rumored interest in at least one big free agent, and the Jimmy G sweepstakes is dwindling and dwindling down to maybe one or two teams. All of that and more coming up on this episode live. Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Eric _ Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Thanks for jumping in with us live on this live stream on the first day of unofficial free agency. The 49ers have lost one, haven't really added anything, but they're rumored to be big in on one guy, and who knows, maybe something huge will break while we're live on the air filming this Tuesday evening Monday. What day is it? Monday evening /
Monday evening
morning podcast for those of you who are audio only and are maybe listening to us driving on your way to work Tuesday morning. Croc, first of all, the biggest news involving the 49ers, they have lost basically free agent number one. Their top guy that I think, at least I thought they should try to resign, has now left the building, or unofficially. Remember a couple of years ago, Anthony Barr pulled a switcheroo. He was going to sign with, I think, the Colts maybe, and then he
Jets,
or was it the Jets? Yeah, and then he ended up
and returned back to the
Vikings when things were official at the beginning of the new league year. So these are all unofficial.
Frank Gore some years ago. Remember him? He was going to a team and then kind of reneged it and ended up going to another team.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Frank Gore was going somewhere after, the 49ers had that mass exodus 2014. He was going to one team and then was like, no, actually I'm going to go to this other team.
So these are unofficial signings and reported signings. And some of the numbers, the agents love throwing these big bloated numbers out there that I don't think are accurate in a lot of cases. And some of these we're seeing are actually a little bit smaller deals or are structured in a way that is not quite as crazy as some of the numbers look for some really sub-elite level players. And I think that's the big thing to remember in all this before we go forward in this podcast. Just because things are quiet, sometimes in a lot of ways that's a good thing, because I don't think a lot of people come out winners spending a whole bunch of money in free agency and throwing stupid money out there. And if you're going to sign a guy, make sure he's a difference maker. Make sure it makes sense for your team, because if you're paying $20 million a year for a wide receiver 3, as maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars are, that's not a great thing for you in the long term. So in some ways, being more quiet on day one of free agency is a better sign for your franchise than the teams that are the busiest and throwing down the most cash today.
Well, listen, you might have to talk some 49er fans off of the ledge, and maybe you just did that right there. I've been listening in on the Twitter spaces, and the 49er fans, they are losing it. I'm like, hold on. We can't criticize a team for their approach to the offseason, really to everything they've done. We're talking about a team that's gone to 2 NFC championships in the last 3 years and a Super Bowl. Like, they aren't this incompetent front office. And I'm not saying they're perfect with every single move that they've made, but at the end of the day, the results have at the very least made it to where I give them the benefit of the doubt, even if it's not something I personally would do.
The big one is Laken Tomlinson. He has agreed to terms unofficially with the New York Jets, Robert Saleh's new team. To be honest with you, Croc, I think the Jets have probably poached away fewer players than expected the first couple off seasons here from the 49ers. This is really the first big one that they've taken away from the 49ers. There have been some, but nothing really major. This is a big free agent acquisition for the New York Jets, and really paid Laken Tomlinson. God bless Laken Tomlinson. They paid him what looks to be around $14 million a year on this new contract, stealing him away from the 49ers. And I think it's smart that the 49ers didn't really go there. So you say You say, congratulations, Laken, go get that money, right? And I think it's a level the 49ers couldn't go to, and I think it's a smart move by the front office. They put a limit. They couldn't get a friendly deal done before free agency, so you have to let a guy go, talk to teams, and if they come back with a number that you don't want to match, the smart teams don't match those numbers. So Laken Tomlinson, good on you. Go get that money. The Niners now have to figure some things out on their offensive line.
I was on my YouTube channel and someone had said basically like, hey, don't overpay for Laken Tomlinson. And I was like, okay, like what is overpay? And he said anything more than $10 million a year. And then you see the Jets come in, and again, the number on paper, $14 million a year. I'd say I'm fine with it. Okay, you lost Laken, you just lost him. Let's hope that a guy like Aaron Banks can kind of take that year 2 leap, because you're going to need it losing a guy like him. But I won't fault the 49ers at all for not being able to retain Laken Tomlinson at that number. That's a big number, $14 million a year for a guard. And I mean, for him, even though he's been very consistent and he's been an Iron Man, he hasn't missed games, but that's a lot of money for an aging guard.
By the way, I like your choice of headgear today, Croc. For those of you watching this podcast, we did not plan this out. We both rocking the San Francisco Giants hat, getting pumped. There's actually going to be a baseball season this year, a lot of baseball free agent signing as well. Man, that Japanese outfielder, Seiya Suzuki, I'd like to see him in a Giants uniform. That's watching a little Major League Baseball free agency, just like I'm watching the NFL free agency. Giants a lot more active than the San Francisco 49ers right now, their football counterparts. But no, I think you nailed it there. Look, they went higher than the 49ers, I think, were willing to go. The 49ers have a lot of very expensive players, and you can't continue to pay positions like guard top of the market money if you want to pay tackles a lot of money. You want to pay your tight end a lot of money and a linebacker money, which traditionally don't make a ton of money, right? And so you have to pick and choose where you're going to pay. Aaron Banks is the big one. He's got nowhere to go but up. He played left guard in college, so maybe that'll help him out because he was, flipping back over to the right side for the 49ers last year. He'll compete at left guard, I'm sure, but I can't imagine what we've seen from Aaron Banks his rookie year is enough for the 49ers to just pencil him in as the starter. Now, Jalen Moore, I think, if the competition was on the field last year, I would say Jalen Moore, even the 5th round rookie, has a leg up on the 2nd round rookie from last year in Aaron Banks potentially for that left guard spot. Maybe they let the 2 second-year guys battle it out at left guard. Maybe they bring somebody else in, a lower price free agent. Maybe they add still some more players in the draft. But it is a big loss, and Laken Tomlinson played 100% of the snaps for the 49ers. He's been really consistent, and he's not a superstar player, so you can't pay him superstar money, but he's a really good player, and the 49ers are going to miss him unless one of those young players really step up, which is what the 49ers probably hoped when they drafted Aaron Banks, and we'll see if he takes that big step, because even if he gets a little bit better, that's not enough. He's got to get a lot better from what we saw last year.
Right. Whether it's him or Moore, and you talked about Moore is a guy that they drafted to potentially play guard, but because of injuries was forced to play tackle. And I would assume that they didn't care for what they saw because he ended up kind of getting beat out by Compton. But maybe, again, if he profiled better as a guard, put him at a position where he's going to be more comfortable playing at, and give him this offseason, hey, this is the plan. Everybody, just like, jobs or whatever, you have those extra interviews and whatnot, or those, quarterly checkups, whatever everybody has. Well, they have that in the NFL. And when you go home after the season, they tell you, hey, this is what we plan on doing. Work on this, work on that. We want you to improve in these areas. And hopefully more, part of it was him playing guard if Laken Tomlinson was going to be leaving. So we'll see. Guard is supposed to be one of the more kind of plug and play type positions. If you can get a 2-year starter out of Daniel Brunskill, these other guys, like they can play.
They should be able to play, and the 49ers should be able to plug somebody in there and get some, and that's why you don't pay $14 million for a guard. It's tough, though, because this could be a disaster scenario for the 49ers on the offensive line. Obviously going into this offseason, you would hope the 49ers could get even better on the O-line. There's a potential that they could take a step back from where they were. Mike McGlinchey coming off that severe thigh or quad tear. What if McGlinchey doesn't come back to full strength? And now maybe you need more at right tackle. They still have maybe Compton, and I think Brunskill, they would hope that Banks beat him out last year, and they didn't. And you have an aging center in who's the center for the 49ers? Alex Mack. So you have Alex Mack. And so you have really one really set position at left tackle. Mack is good, getting older, but he should be fine there. But really some question marks at 3 out of the 5 positions. So I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers did still go the free agent route and maybe had somebody else there to, jump in and maybe at least compete for one of those spots, maybe like Tom Compton was, but there's a chance that offensive line could step back. It is a loss for the 49ers, but I understand why they didn't go there and pay what maybe Laken Tomlinson was looking for. And it might have been even less, but, not enough. Oh, the quarterback stuff. We got to talk about the quarterback stuff, Crocky. There is, let's see, Deshaun Watson I think is slowing things down in the quarterback market because a lot of teams are checking in on him. We've got to go check out what's going on in the free agent market with some other teams and some other players. The 49ers might have a big name coming. Who knows? Maybe there is news that will break with a big-time signing or a big-time trade while we're on this podcast, Croc. We'll get into all that stuff and get into the chat a little bit, answer some of those listener questions as well. Coming up, first, I want to let the folks out there know about Bet Online. It's that time of year again. It's tourney time. College basketball's tournament finally upon us. It's always a lot of fun, and you can find all the latest odds, contests, and player props at Bet Online, which remains the number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. Bet Online remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news even this season. So not just wagering. Go find out what's going on in the sporting world at betonline.net. And it's not just basketball. It's not just football. It's not just free agent props or draft props or Super Bowl futures and college basketball and pro basketball. You've got hockey, Major League Baseball now going to be a lot of fun. And you can bet on that every single day, all summer long at Bet Online, even live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So get over to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Thanks for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL, Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. And just like this program, it is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Crocky. 49ers Shaolin says you look bored. Are you bored at the lack of activity by your San Francisco 49ers day one of tampering? Where's the tampering, John Lynch?
No, on my screen, I have everything that's going on with the NFL on Twitter right now. So I'm just kind of scrolling through that. So yeah, not bored with what we're talking about here. We're good.
That's Croc focused reading face is what that is.
Yeah.
That's Croc looking at Christian Kirk getting $20 million a year and getting cross-eyed. Like, wait a second, is that the right number? Is it 20 years for 20 million 4 years or 20 million per year?
It was 4 years up to $84 million.
Woo! Up to is key. I wonder how much of that money he actually sees.
It was 74, I believe, before they're like escalators and stuff. And then obviously we know the most important number is what's guaranteed to you.
Guaranteed dollars is going to be key. How many guaranteed dollars, Croc, would you be willing to throw at Stephon Gilmore? I've seen a ton of different, there's serious heat. The 49ers are definitely in on Stephon Gilmore. There was some rumors coming into today, and now from different reporters, I've seen that it's the Raiders, the Jets, and the 49ers that are in on Stephon Gilmore. The 49ers, I think, are trying to keep that deal lower in APY, lower in years, which is why, to me, Stephon Gilmore always made the most sense instead of someone like J.C. Jackson, who signed a big deal with the Chargers, Carlton Davis staying at home with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Stephon Gilmore is that guy. And if the 49ers want to make a splash in free agency, maybe there's some edge names out there I want to throw out on you, Croc. But I think Stephon Gilmore right now, there's the most smoke with him, and he makes the most sense. And if they can bring him in on, say, 2 years at $12.5 million per year, I think that would be rock solid. You'd be paying him less than you'd be paying your guard. And look, corner is just a more impactful position than guard.
Yeah, and that would be a big signing. Again, I think part of it comes down to, how do you feel about Ambry Thomas? Do you think that he's potentially ready to be a starter? And if you're still kind of, I guess, questioning that, which you should be, and you have an opportunity to improve that with a guy like Stephon Gilmore, then you do it. Now, I wouldn't be saying just throw whatever at the wall and see what sticks. you know, at the cornerback position. Wouldn't do that, but just in the sense of, you know, Stephon Gilmore, and you know, he's a little bit older now, but I still think he has some really good years ahead of him. He was good for Panthers last year when he was playing, and he played the second half of the season. They just weren't very good. So I would like that signing. I would like a signing of Stephon Gilmore. That's definitely a guy we'll go after. I like the contract numbers you said as well.
Yeah, and I've been going to Pro Football Focus, and their projections have been pretty good for what most of the players are going to get. Some have gone a little higher, some have gone a lot higher. And I believe Brad Spielberger, shout out to Brad, friend of the program, who's got a big part in that. He used to work at overthecap.com as well. I've been following his Twitter feed today with some of these signings. And yeah, they've got him at about 12.5 mil for 2 years. So I like that for the 49ers. And look, the 49ers can look at Stephon Gilmore's agents and say, look, okay, you might be able to squeeze more money out of the Raiders. You might be able to squeeze more money out of the Jets. But does Stephon want to come to the 49ers and compete for a title the next 2 years of these contract years that we're offering? You know, the Raiders are in trouble. I could see the Raiders going for a lot more money, which I think would hurt the 49ers' chances in getting Gilmore, because the Raiders just really need some help on the outside on defense. And so they might be willing to do more money than the 49ers, but I really think the 49ers are the best situation. We'll see if they can get it done. But I would not be surprised if by the end of this podcast or tomorrow when we wake up that Stephon Gilmore is not quite a 49er, because it would be unofficial, but he would have agreed to a deal with the San Francisco 49ers.
I would like it. I would like it. That would, and I think that would please a lot of 49er fans. They've been clamoring at the thought of getting a cornerback that's a legit starter, that has that big name. And I do think he's a guy that he moves the needle for me. I'm not big on swapping out Ambry Thomas for a Travarius Ward or something like that. It doesn't move the needle for me. But you know, if you want to go with Stephon Gilmore, a guy like that, and you're pushing to be the best that you could be, which again, load up now while you can around your rookie on his contract. I like Stephon Gilmore would be a move that makes a lot of sense for me.
Absolutely. And even those deals that are coming in the future with Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa, those aren't really going to hit big on the cap until 2024, 2023,
Right.
2024, because they're, even when the deals are done, then the first year is going to be friendly because you're going to throw down a signing bonus, and then you're going to lower the yearly rate there, so you can push a little bit of that money into the future. So really, you have a couple years here, and the 2-year deal for Gilmore, he can get in and out before the money really hits for guys like Deebo and Bosa, the big money, and the cap's going up too, so they can fit a big free agent or maybe even a two in. Obviously, sending Jimmy Garoppolo away and saving that $25 million is a big part of this. So what are your thoughts on Jimmy G now? And it's looking more and more like, if a team is going to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, it's either New Orleans or most likely the Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis Colts, far and away the number one most likely team now. And especially since the latest news, after Deshaun Watson has met with a couple of teams. He met with the brass from the Carolina Panthers today. He met with the brass from the New Orleans Saints. And I think there's another secret team in there, which I believe is probably the Eagles, maybe the Cleveland Browns even are sniffing around over there. But Carolina said, the Texans said they won't trade him to Indianapolis because they're in the division. So,
Which I didn't think they would. When people started throwing that name out there, oh, Indianapolis coach Deshaun Watson. I'm like, why would Houston say, you know what, we're going to strengthen the best team in the division?
Like, no, that doesn't make sense for them to do. And you know what else is funny, which I think helps the 49ers. So that's one thing that helps the Niners, because now the Colts say, okay, well, we can't go there. I guess we got to go for Jimmy. And also, Deshaun Watson turned down Seattle. He says, nope, not interested, because Deshaun Watson doesn't have a no trade clause, which is, Deshaun, you better.
So where does he go? I mean, what are his options? Philly?
Carolina, I think, is number one. Played college in the Carolinas, right? I think it's a smaller market that would keep the off-field, all the whispers and all the news cycle. I think that would mute that a little bit. So to me, it makes the most sense for Deshaun Watson to go where he's already loved, back home, and let things chill out there for the 6+ games that he's going to be suspended next year, probably, which is another thing. You better have another quarterback ready to go to start the season, because I really think that Deshaun Watson will be and should be suspended, and who knows, maybe he'll be suspended for a whole year. The Eagles have a ton of picks to trade. They've done some investigative work on him. I know that. So that one's a possibility. The New Orleans Saints, I don't know how they're going to pay for a Jimmy Garoppolo or Deshaun Watson, but they've been in on both of those players, according to reports. So the Saints are out there as well. And they met with Deshaun Watson today. But if I had to guess right now, I think the Carolina Panthers front runners for Deshaun Watson, and I think the Indianapolis Colts front runners for Jimmy Garoppolo. Although there's still a couple other options out there, which might keep competition at least at a good enough level for teams like the Texans and the 49ers to get a nice little return on their trade assets.
Well, we know what's not an option, and then that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who elected to sign Mitchell Trubisky. All right, and
I understand where Pittsburgh not wanting to part with draft picks, and maybe the 49ers were asking for too much for Jimmy Garoppolo. Totally get that. But Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and Dwayne Haskins. The only thing those quarterbacks have done is proven that they're not good NFL quarterbacks. And that's what you're going with if you're the Steelers. You got to still be going into the draft if you're the Steelers.
That's what I'm thinking. When I saw that immediately, I'm like, Trubisky. Okay, that's not a long-term play.
No.
My mind immediately went to the draft. This is a bridge quarterback situation, a guy who they didn't have to trade for and won't cost them as much money, but has shown that you can go to the playoffs with him, right? We see all that multiple times with him in Chicago. So, I get it from that standpoint. You go out there and you get Malik Willis at pick 20.
Makes sense. Although Willis is not going to be there at 20. I don't know. Look, you're the draft expert here, Croc. You host Locked On NFL Draft. I'm going to throw some draft stuff at you in a second. We'll get into the chat as well in the next segment. But as of right now, Jimmy Garoppolo has not been traded. There's still a market for him, but maybe there's a chance that the Niners get a lot in trade. There's a chance that John Lynch overplayed his hand, because there was also stories today that the 49ers, and I think this is basically them saying, look, we're not going to cut him, so teams don't even worry about that. The Niners said we could keep him all the way to training camp. We could keep him as long as we need to keep him right now. So the 49ers, in the next couple of days, if they do some signings and they don't trade Jimmy Garoppolo, I think we're going to see some announcement, and they probably have some paperwork ready to go for some restructures. And maybe if they do trade Jimmy, they don't have to do some restructures that they might not want to do. So I think that's the holdup in not seeing any news right now coming out of Santa Clara for those Niners. Croc, let's get into the chat next. This episode brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models for vehicles out there, you've got Hemis that run out of gas. You've got very efficient vehicles out there. No matter the car, no matter the parts, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? Don't worry about going to a counter and waiting for a guy to look at his green computer screen and they only have one part possible for your vehicle and you don't know what they're looking at and they're upcharging you 50, even 100% for those parts. No, go to rockauto.com and they have everything you need. You've got a computer in your pocket with access to rockauto.com and the best selection of auto parts for your car or truck. And you can get it with reliably low prices for every customer, do-it-yourselfers and professionals alike at rockauto.com. So go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts that are available for your car or truck. Make sure you write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need or truck at rockauto.com.
Real quick, Peacock, I did see a comment in the chat, someone saying Mr. Trubisky is on the new team before Jimmy, says a lot. And I will say it says a lot, but maybe not what 49er fans think. It's not just Jimmy Garoppolo, trade him, and okay, he's playing. I mean, there is a shoulder injury he's dealing with. He's coming off of that. There is the contract aspect of it. I'm pretty sure he's going to want an extension. I think Jimmy's going to have to go to a team that he fits the culture, and they're going to value what he does and be able to build his team around that. And if I had to just kind of go off of just that, I would say it's the Indianapolis Colts. And maybe it doesn't make as much sense for a team like Pittsburgh Steelers, who traditionally play a different style of offense, at least over the last, 10 years with Ben Roethlisberger. Obviously they have some things in place where I think Jimmy Garoppolo could excel, but is that the long-term answer? It seems like they want to go in a different direction. Colts, they get guys like that are, I don't want to say overachievers, but it's just like good football players, and they excel with those type of guys. I think Jimmy fits the culture there.
And there's a reason that Trubisky goes first because he's easier to get. He's cheap. And you could
Right.
say, hey, you call up Mitch's agent. You say, hey, Mitch's agent, this is so-and-so from the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're not going to offer you crap, but maybe Mitch has an opportunity to start a couple games. And you're Mitch's agent. And you say yes to that faster than Croc said yes to the Colts third-round pick a few podcasts ago, right? Because nobody's giving Mitchell Trubisky a chance to start anywhere, and nobody should be. And so right now, that's the best. That's absolutely the best place for Mitchell Trubisky to go to a team that has a good running back, that has a good defense, that might win right away, and you have an opportunity to compete for a starting job. He's not going to have an opportunity to compete most of these other places. All the other places we're talking about, even if the New York Giants was the hottest one after the hottest team that seemed like we're after Mitchell Trubisky, and he wasn't going to start. Daniel Jones is going to start. He's the guy they drafted number 1 overall. Daniel Jones had to be in a disaster to get Mitchell Trubisky to start there, right? So he has to beat out 2 players who have only played terrible ball, that weren't drafted nearly as high as someone like Daniel Jones was, and that have been around longer than Daniel Jones. And so, that's just, the Pittsburgh Steelers wanted to go cheap. They didn't want to trade a pick, and maybe they'll do something in the draft. Maybe Kenny Pickett, maybe Willis gets to them. I don't know. Let me throw that out to you, though, Cruck. I would place the over-under right now on Malik Willis, number 9 overall in the draft, and Kenny Pickett at number 16 overall. Do you think I'm too high or too low on those two? And I think they'll go 1 and 2 in this draft at quarterback.
Well, I was on I'm on the New York Giants podcast weekly, talking draft, and Tony Pauline did say that he has a first round grade on Malik Willis. So if you got a first round grade on the guy, yeah, there's definitely that potential of him going higher than a lot of people would expect. Now, at pick 9, that would mean Seattle. So the Seattle said, you know what? We're just gonna blow this thing up. Pete Carroll, we don't care how old you are. We don't care that you're 70 years old. Let's go with a young quarterback and kind of rebuild, retool. And does Malik Willis have the leadership capabilities as Russell Wilson did to come in right away and play at a pretty good level? And can they lean on the run game? Can they lean on the defense? I don't know if that's the Seahawks right now. So I'd assume they want to go a more veteran route. But when Deshaun Watson turns you down and says, look, I don't want to play for you, your options are starting to get a little limited. Maybe you have to go with Drew Lock.
Yeah, not a lot of options there for Seattle. Yeah, Drew Lock ain't it, right? He's just a few years behind the curve of what Mitchell Trubisky's on right now. He needs to go somewhere and not play for a year, and everyone will forget about how bad he played when he did play. Maybe. So then you get into Marcus Mariota for Seattle, or what about a guy who went live today, who was working out, who we've seen some workouts from him recently, Colin Kaepernick. If Colin Kaepernick was to make a comeback and sign somewhere, I would not be shocked if it's with the Seattle Seahawks.
He's been away from the game for a while.
Yeah.
We've seen weirder things. Tim Tebow came back last year and had a shot in off season and got some preseason run in there. That was weird. He hasn't played in 8 years, I think it was. And he moved to a different position. He ended up being a tight end. So Colin Kaepernick, playing the same position, quarterback. He's been working out. He says he feels good. I wouldn't hold my breath for it, but we've seen weirder things.
Let's get to the chat here. Nick says, if the 49ers have to release Jimmy, it isn't the end of the world. What I would say to that is there's a big gap between getting a second-round pick or a first-round pick, if that's what they indeed are asking, and cutting a guy. Like, there's a lot of rounds in there. Like, maybe they end up with a 5th-round pick, but they don't have to cut him. They don't have to trade him right now this second for a second-round pick or cut him. There's a lot of other options in there, and I've seen a lot of people that are on both ends of the spectrum. They're they're hoping for the moon in return for Jimmy Garoppolo, or they think that the Niners have to cut him absolutely today. And neither one of those things is necessarily the case. The 49ers will find a market for Jimmy Garoppolo. They'll find someone who will give them something for him. If the team's willing to sign him, they're willing to give up a day 3 pick. Maybe the Niners only get a 4th-round pick. They'll get something for Jimmy Garoppolo. They don't have to cut him. And that's kind of what the messaging is coming out of Santa Clara, which if it's John Lynch leaking information about, oh, we're okay, we'll keep Jimmy Garoppolo past the draft if we have to. That's just him letting people know, dude, we're not going to cut this guy. We know the value of a starting NFL quarterback. We just saw it with Carson Wentz. Someone's going to pay for it. And it might be the team that just got picks for Carson Wentz, who has a bunch of extra picks. It just makes too much sense for him to go to the Colts at this point. But we'll see. Maybe maybe John Lynch overplayed his hand. I don't know.
They've talked about budgeting for plan A, plan B, plan C, whatever. Do you think part of that budgeting was, well, if he's here, we just can't sign anyone? Because, and again, still early in the process. It's day one of the tampering period. Nothing has even become official yet. But, we have seen people getting signed or at least committing to certain contracts. The 49ers name has come up, as they always do, for every team that's, or every free agent that's ever available. But no deal is being done. Do you think Jimmy Garoppolo's contract that's still in the books has anything to do with that?
I think it probably changes things a little bit just because that's the one easy pill to being under the cap, having room, doing stuff with other players. But I'm sure there's other restructures that would happen even with the Jimmy trade that we haven't heard about yet, that are going to be announced on Wednesday when they have to be cap compliant. So they still have time. They're probably waiting to see if Jimmy gets traded. And if he doesn't, then they'll put this plan B into place, which is these other restructures, and then we'll wait and we'll trade Jimmy on another day. But I don't think it's really going to hinder the 49ers doing business all that much. I mean, we've just seen too much NFL, and we know salary cap is somewhat fake for some teams and for most teams if they want to play that game. So the 49ers can do what they need to do.
It's not fake, though.
It's not completely fake, but it is not what it seems on the
Packers.
surface.
But it is, though. I mean, you can work around things to bring back the guys that you want, but there has to get some give and take. The Packers just released Billy Turner, their tackle. They just released Zadarius Smith, their edge rusher, who's been highly productive. I mean, outside of he missed some time last year, but he's been a really good football player. Like, they are letting guys go. That's not for nothing. That's because they're trying to work around this cap, especially when you're going to give Aaron Rodgers 40 to 50 million or whatever he's getting a year. You're trying to franchise tag Devontae Smith. You don't have a long-term answer there. He says, I'm not playing on the franchise tag, but a lot of it has to do with the money that's being offered based on other people on the team. So the salary cap is real. You can work around it. You can finesse some things, but you will let some guys walk. Hell, Buckner, he was a cap casualty in some sense.
Yep.
Pay him X amount of dollars per year, guaranteed, all that, or kind of restart by bringing in somebody to play the same position on a rookie contract. Like that's trying to work the salary cap. So down the line, when I have to pay George Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, I'm in a better position to do so as opposed to having Buckner still on the roster.
Right. Yeah. And when a team like the Saints is $75 million over the salary cap, and not only are they going to get under the cap, they're shopping for Jimmy G, they're shopping for Deshaun Watson, right? It just tells you can do what you want to do. And you might have to pay for it with a player here, a player there. If you really want to do something, you can do it. If the 49ers
they could have kept Buckner.
Yeah, they could have absolutely kept Buckner. And
but
I think in a lot of ways,
remember, they asked the question, right? It was, all right, we could keep Buckner, but we would lose this guy. That was their thing, right? Like, we're going to lose Ward, we're going to lose Armstead, and they're going to lose like another player. And in return, they got a player on rookie contract. So there were just too many positive, like, okay, like one player, and he's terrific. But do we move all these other guys or have trouble bringing those guys back just to keep him? And I think, that was the conversation that they had. The cap, it's a real thing. You just got to figure out how to finesse it.
And part of that
lose some guys.
Part of that with Buckner is, you've got to draft and develop. We see that with the Patriots. The Patriots didn't even offer J.C. Jackson a contract. They're like, okay, go ahead, have fun. And so what does that tell you about how they believe in their system, how they believe they can draft and develop, and they want to pay the guys that are difference makers wherever that is. You have to be able to be willing to let guys walk, and you have to be willing to do, and you can do whatever you want to do if you really want to bring a guy back. Like the 49ers could have kept DeForest Buckner. We wouldn't have Eric Armstead and maybe not Kyle Juszczyk or whatever, but they could have done what they needed to do, and they could have moved things around. They could have pushed things into the future. They could have restructured contracts. They could have, Jimmy Garoppolo was a magic pill. They could have made $25 million of cap space anytime they wanted to, but they didn't want to lock themselves into Jimmy Garoppolo. That would have paid for DeForest Buckner by himself. They could have they could have moved money into the future. One of the things the 49ers have done the best at, they're top 3 in the NFL at not having dead money. So they've tried to keep the books really clean, whereas other teams played the game a little bit, have more dead money here, kicking the can down the road more. The 49ers have tried not to do that as much. And the better you are, the more high price free agents you have that you try to keep, it's going to be harder and harder for them to do that. But the bottom line of this whole conversation is if the 49ers need to have Jimmy Garoppolo past the new league year date on Wednesday, and they still want to sign, say, Stephon Gilmore, they can do that. It is not a problem. They will find a way to do that. The salary cap allows them to make that happen. And maybe they pay a little bit more down the road, have some dead money at some point for somebody, and there's some void years for somebody, but they can do that if they want to do it. And that's why the 49ers aren't worried about it. It's just the order of things and how they do that. If they can get Jimmy Garoppolo traded in the next 2 days, then it's probably a different plan of who they're restructuring and what money they're moving around than if Jimmy Garoppolo's on the books. Then they've got to do a little bit more restructuring, move a little bit more around to do the business that they want to do. But they can do whatever they need to do in the next few days.
Do you predict Jimmy Garoppolo will be on the roster come Wednesday?
I don't think he will be. I predict he gets traded in the next
24 hours,
36 hours to the Indianapolis Colts. I think it's going to happen. I think there's a little holdup with the 49ers just because of the contract stuff. I'm sure his agent is also, I think his agent is helping. And that's exactly what happened with the Buckner thing. The agent went and found the deal, right? And that was part of, they called John Lynch's bluff on that too. John Lynch is like, okay, you think you can get $22 million a year from a team? Let me know if you find that, and you better bring back a first round pick. And his agent's like, okay. And then his agent's like, hey, John, knock, knock, knock. We got it. And John Lynch is like, oh, crap. You called my bluff. I guess we got to do the deal, you know? And that's kind of what's going on right now. Don Yee's the one out there probably burning up the phones even more than John Lynch is about a Jimmy Garoppolo trade. And he's probably trying to get a restructure with that team or an extension with that team because like we saw with a lot of these deals, I don't think a team wants to come in, pay that entire salary to Jimmy Garoppolo just for 1 year. Then if he plays well, they're going to lose him to free agency potentially. They probably want to have a 2-year deal for him, and they probably work for year one. So there's probably some of that going on, which just makes it a little bit more difficult for Jimmy Garoppolo to just go, okay, what's the trade offer? Here you go. Here's Jimmy. And then there's the shoulder. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult. We're seeing a lot of
again,
stuff.
the coach were in on Watson. So there's that aspect of it as well, trying to see how that whole thing plays out. Watson says, or not Watson, but Houston, they say no way. Also saw someone, I think it was our guy Jeffrey in the chat, said, Jimmy Garoppolo to Houston, I think they might be okay with where they're at with their rookie quarterback, Davis Mills, heading into his second year. How much better can he be? Can he take that next step? How much better would Jimmy Garoppolo be right now? Like at this point, after Mills has played, 10, 11 games, got that experience. Can you take the next step? If he does take the next step, how much better is Jimmy Garoppolo than him? There's that question as well. So I don't know if they just move for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I totally agree. Do you want to hang out a little bit longer, Croc?
Yeah, I got 15 minutes.
All right, so we're going to go 15 minutes of overtime, a full quarter of overtime here for those of you that are live on the chat with us on YouTube. For the rest of you listening in your car to the Tuesday morning, episode of Locked On 49ers, thanks for making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, go check out Croc doing Locked On NFL Draft. I'm doing the Peacock and Williamson NFL show every day with my guy, Matt Williamson. We'll be talking about all the signings and all the stuff happening around the NFL. For those of you on YouTube Live, hang out. We'll get into some overtime and get into the chat right here. Locked On 49ers. All right, folks, let's overlay the chat on the screen. What do you think about that, Croc? Love it. All right. So YouTube just sent me here. Where are we at? The screen's too small. I can barely read these. Oh, that's not going to work. All right. You can't do that. Let's not overlay the chat. Oh, it did work. Whatever. It's gone now. Sorry. Chat overlay has disappeared. Boris says, YouTube just sent me here. Colts fan, happy to take Jimmy Handsome off your hands. Oh, I like it, Boris. Okay, Boris, what's the offer? What are you willing to give up for those Colts? What do you think it's going to take Because I think at this point, the Colts need to do something. The 49ers need to do something. And it's a perfect marriage. I think Jimmy would be a nice fit for what the Colts are trying to do. And look, adding Jimmy Garoppolo, we just saw it with the 49ers last year. That doesn't change your plan if you want to go into the draft and draft somebody either. And that's why I think the Niners are going to end up getting future picks in this. So the Colts can go get a really good player in the first round. They can draft a second round. They can draft Desmond Ridder in the second round, right? And then give away a future pick to the 49ers and really help themselves out now and in the future. I think that's the best move.
I think I disagree.
How could you disagree, Croc, with my years of experience as the Shadow 49ers GM?
No, you've done amazing there, drafting the guys. But I'm saying in this scenario, I think if a team trades for Jimmy Garoppolo, it's almost like Kirk Cousins to the Vikings. Like, you plan for him to be around for a few years. I think that's how you get the most value out of the situation. I don't know if it's, okay, let's give up this pick right now, a second or a third for Jimmy Garoppolo, and all right, we'll still go draft a quarterback first round. Or, I don't think that's going to be the case at all. Now, maybe you look at it like, okay, maybe, third round or something like that. If there's somebody there that you like and you could, see what he is as a backup and then eventually play him. But I think if you trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, you restructure him to actually be your guy. And that's what Don Yee probably is behind the scenes right now, trying to work on that type of contract.
I just think if you trade, I just think most teams would be, and it's not that you have to go draft the first available quarterback at your first available pick either. As pointed out here, the Colts don't have a first round pick. Their first pick is number 42. They jumped up 5 spots in that trade from Wentz because they were at 47, went up to 42 in the second round now. It's just an option. It doesn't, like, getting Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't mean Jimmy's your quarterback forever. It means, oh, okay, this quarterback we also like in the draft fell to us. If the Niners drafted a quarterback at number 3 with Jimmy G, a team can trade a future second for Jimmy G and then still be on the clock in the second round and see Desmond Ridder there and draft him and say, cool, Desmond's going to sit.
I don't think they do. You think
why would you not want to be better at the best position, the most important position on the field, and all it costs you is a second round pick or a second and a third or a couple of seconds? We just saw
I don't think you trade for Jimmy Garoppolo just to turn around and draft a guy that high.
It doesn't have to be the number one plan, but if you like a quarterback there, it doesn't prevent you from doing that because you have Jimmy Garoppolo. That's all I'm saying. You don't lock yourself into Jimmy Garoppolo forever just because you traded a future pick for it. That's what Jimmy's not going to cost you that much money.
Look at the Vikings right now and what they're going through with Kirk Cousins, and I think that's what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Exactly my point. They shouldn't do that.
No, they shouldn't do it, but they will.
That's what I'm saying. They should have drafted a second round quarterback that's maybe good now, and they could move on from Kirk Cousins, but they've locked themselves into Kirk Cousins because they never found that guy. So that's why the Colts should say to themselves, we'll let the draft come to us now. We have these picks. We've got this quarterback we feel good about. If a quarterback's there that we love, we'll take him. If not, cool. We'll build around this quarterback that we have. Maybe next year there's a quarterback we love that can sit for a year. Then Jimmy plays 2 years and moves on. So that's all I'm saying with the Colts. I just think it makes a lot of sense for where the Colts are, what they're doing. They can afford him under the salary cap. So we'll see. I think Boris came back with an offer that was pretty ugly. I think you're going to have to up your offer with some folks in the chat are asking for Quentin Nelson, because the 49ers need a guard now. It went from DeForest Buckner to now Quentin Nelson, but that is definitely not happening. Let's see, Boris. Kenny Moore, Pro Bowler. What do you think? Kenny Moore for Jimmy G.
No, they just re-signed. Didn't they just re-sign him like last year?
Nothing's forever, Croc.
I know, but Kenny Moore just got a healthy contract, and he's one of the best nickels in the league.
You like Kenny Moore? Would you take him for Jimmy?
Yeah, take him. He's a really good football player, but Colts ain't giving him up.
Yeah.
They literally just re-signed him, I think, last year. I believe it was.
It'll probably be picks. It'll be picks for the 49ers. And they have a bunch of day 2 picks.
Kirk Cousins. So it was a $35 million contract, the Kirk Cousins deal?
It was a 1-year extension. Yeah.
Kirk Cousins, he's made a lot of money.
$265 million.
Is it?
Over the course of his career.
He had the back-to-back franchise tags. I mean, that's big money alone right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had the 90-something million guaranteed. And then they added to that. And then now they extended him again. I mean, he's big money, guaranteed money too.
That's crazy. So he's locked in.
They can't get better. They can't. How do you? And that's the tough thing. As long as he's there, it's hard to look at a quarterback in practice and just be like, you're better. You're better than Cousins. Like, it would have to be like clear. But with you giving Kirk Cousins all this money, do you try to move up and draft a guy high? Probably not, right?
I don't know. You probably you can't not take the right quarterback if he's there, but you probably feel good enough with Kirk Cousins that you don't have to move around. But we saw with the 49ers, they're in the same boat with Jimmy G, and they still went way up to get a guy and paid a ton to do it. So, and in a lot of ways, you got to applaud the 49ers for having the guts to do it. They try to get better in the future. Go for that star quarterback.
Yeah, but there was no more dead. There was no more dead cap, or not dead cap, but no more guaranteed money on Jimmy's books. I think at that point they kind of realized, all right, we are hella limited with this dude at quarterback, and it is way too difficult to continue to call plays for him. If we have an opportunity to get better or get a more explosive quarterback, we will do it. And Jimmy's injuries, I believe, opened the door up for that more than anything. If Jimmy had been healthy the entire time, I think 49ers would be in the same boat as the Minnesota Vikings. It would be hard to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo because he'd be just good enough, and you'd always be drafting a little late. And there's always that, all right, well, we'll see if it comes together next year. The 49ers would be in the same boat as Minnesota.
And 49ers would be looking at Jimmy Garoppolo's $25 million and being like, gosh, that's a bargain. We're paying him $10 million a year less than Kirk Cousins. He's, it takes 2 Jimmy G's to match what Aaron Rodgers is going to be making now. So it's pretty.
That might be the holdup for them trading Jimmy Garoppolo away, because Jimmy's looking at it like, I'm better than this dude.
Yeah, Jimmy.
Or at the very least, I'm just as good. So I don't want to get traded somewhere and I'm not getting $35 million a year like Kirk Cousins is getting. Like, I need that. Don't try to pay me $18 million a year.
That's true. Yeah, Jimmy can say, like, look, to hell with taking a pay cut. On the opposite side, I should get a pay bump, $10 million, and you add $30 million a year to my next year's contract too, if you want to extend me, right? So, and it's funny because, and this adds to the credence of that report that we thought sounded crazy from Mike Tannenbaum a couple of days ago, where he said, with everything going on in the league, it just made Jimmy Garoppolo's value skyrocket. That he's worth a first-round pick in trade, and he should be asking for $40 million a year. So, I guess it's not as insane as we think, and maybe it's still insane, but that's how agents think, right? And so maybe that's the holdup, is trying to figure out the money and the contract with all this in a Jimmy Garoppolo trade. So we'll find out. I think we'll find out soon enough. Is Trubisky? Hold on, is Trubisky getting $9 million?
That sounds about right.
Per year?
I'd give him $9 million a year.
Oh, I'd pay $9 million to not have him on my roster. That is a terrible deal.
If you're Pittsburgh and you feel like you have all the pieces in place to be competitive, hell, a couple years ago they won 8 games with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. So if I can win 8 games with those guys, I can win 10 with Trubisky. That would be my thoughts. And again, he ain't the long-term answer. I'm going into this draft seeing if I can get Malik Willis, who has much higher upside than Trubisky. And Trubisky's days will be numbered before they even start. That's the direction I go. And at the end of the day, it's only going to cost me $9 million a year. I think that's not bad for a guy that you head into the season like he's your starting quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, last year the Eagles gave up a 6th-round pick for Gardner Minshew. You know what I mean? Like, that's a move you make for a cheap quarterback who could be a stopgap, that could be a backup, that could start some games. I'll take Gardner Minshew over Mitch Trubisky at the price, especially, all day long.
No, I hear you, but almost like Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And people can't do it with Jimmy, but not do it with Trubisky. Trubisky has been to multiple playoffs as a starting quarterback. Trubisky has had weird moments, just like Jimmy. Trubisky, I believe there's some crazy number since 2017. He's like top 5 in wins Like, so I get it because it doesn't look right, but shoots. The only difference between Trubisky's playoff performances and Jimmy Garoppolo's is Jimmy probably had a better running game.
I want to see what Trubisky's winning percentage is because that sounds odd. He did have the one good year. In his second year with the Bears, record-wise, the Bears were 11-3 that year. That's the year they went to the playoffs.
I
And I
keep
believe
looking.
that was the year Mitch Trubisky was like a Pro Bowl alternate too, and he got to play.
Right.
But that doesn't
And he
count.
ended up going to the Pro Bowl.
He was a Pro Bowl alternate.
He's a Pro
And
Bowl
guys
quarterback.
couldn't play, so he got to.
He's a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Oh, I'm not buying that one. I don't. First
Jimmy
of all,
can't say that.
they shouldn't. They should play the Pro Bowl game. It should just be an honor, and the Pro Bowlers are the Pro Bowlers, and that's the end of it. There's no alternates. There's no extra guys. There's only 16 starting quarterbacks in one of the conferences. 3 of them are there. Those 3 guys don't show up. So then the next 3 are Pro Bowlers. That's half the damn league is a Pro Bowl quarterback if you go down to the third alternate. So, yeah, I don't like that at all. But anyway, let's see. His
Trubisky
record
29
is
and 22.
Yeah, 29 and 21. It looks like.
Oh. Or somebody said without his rookie year. I don't know.
Yeah. Good luck.
Ultimately, he's been to multiple playoff appearances. And
Yeah.
he really was kind of led by the defense. And it was pretty clear.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo has been to multiple playoff appearances. And they were led by the defense. And it was pretty clear.
There's some folks that
I don't think
agree with you.
Trubisky is better than Jimmy, though. I would never say that.
No. And he's also, as pointed out here, he was an MVP in 2021, the Nickelodeon Player of the Year. So he's got that going for him as well.
Look at that. Just some good accolades. Trubisky's not better than Jimmy.
No, Trubisky's not better than Jimmy.
You can make an argument that he's more talented for sure, but he's not better.
There's something with Trubisky too. And I remember pre-draft, there was a lot to like about Mitch Trubisky. You know, he's pretty athletic, had a good arm. He had the one season at North Carolina that was good. But something about him, when he would speak in interviews, and I was like, is this guy like a complete meathead? I don't think there's a lot going on upstairs with Mitch Trubisky.
Saying he had one class in high school.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I just don't. It doesn't seem like everything's firing for him. And when I saw him in the NFL, I was like, this guy doesn't have it. I don't know. I see Jimmy Garoppolo. He's in command. He's a leader. He's imperfect for sure, but you can be valuable and imperfect. I see Mitchell Trubisky. I was like, I don't want any part of that. And to me, look, and if you don't like, if you think Jimmy and Trubisky are on the same level, then you shouldn't want either one, and you shouldn't be signing them for money, and you shouldn't be giving up picks for them. So, that's okay. But to me, Jimmy Garoppolo is clearly better and someone that you would actually want quarterbacking your team. And I don't think you can say the same about Mitchell Trubisky. And for me, if I'm a GM and I'm paying out money, I'm not giving out starting dollars for another position for a guy who I think is a garbage backup in the first place, right?
I don't think he's a garbage backup.
Oh, I think he is. That's why I wouldn't be going for Mitch.
Well, what's a garbage backup?
Mitch Trubisky.
No, I think backups are garbage.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Why would you pay $9 million for that? Why would you?
He's a starter.
Why would you pay $9 million for Mitch Trubisky when you're just going to draft a guy that you actually want? And
he's a starter. He has proven that you can go to the playoffs with him.
All right. We'll see.
We can't make the argument for Jimmy Garoppolo like that because Jimmy Garoppolo has kind of stunk it up in the playoffs, right?
He has. Yeah.
Playoff Jimmy has been good?
Playoff Jimmy has shown flashes, but hasn't been great. No.
What flashes?
He's shown flashes. Well, look. Okay.
I got him.
The Packers game was like snowing and 7 degrees. Aaron Rodgers didn't light it up in that game either. You know what I mean? So that one's hard. He didn't do a ton in this postseason. I'll give you that, but he's Jimmy W for a reason.
My Stockton people are in the chat saying Jimmy Garoppolo belongs on Charter Way.
What does that mean? On the way out of town?
Nah, it ain't on the way out of town.
Oh,
That's
okay.
like the host
Charter
row.
Way in Watt Avenue.
The host row. Like that's the they're it's where the night walkers.
Okay. I got you. 49ers Shaolin says I took the L. If the argument is that Trubisky's a good quarterback, that is not an L that I'm going to be taking, and I'll wait a few months for that to be proven out. But
I think there are a lot of people that think that Jimmy Garoppolo in a different environment might not have the success that he's had with the 49ers. I think there's a lot of people that believe that.
Look, and it's possible. The only thing we know, and we're talking about what street Jimmy should be on. Mike Shields says he belongs on
International
Boulevard in Oakland. Okay. If we are the chat's going off the rails. Jack London Square for Jimmy G. Basically, yeah, if Jimmy Garoppolo gets credit for being Jimmy W, then I understand what you're saying about the QB record, because QB record, we all know, is not a great barometer for how good a player is. And I know we have fun with the Jimmy W stuff, but the 49ers are trying to get better than Jimmy for a reason. I think he's a top 20 quarterback in the NFL. I think Mitchell Trubisky's a lot worse than that, and we'll see what that ends up looking like. Who knows? Maybe
eye test
things.
Says Garoppolo is better than Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah.
I think the question is, how much better is he in the same environment? If you plug Mitchell Trubisky into the 49ers offense and said, hey, you only got to throw 8 games and you'll advance to the Super Bowl, can Mitchell Trubisky do that?
And it's hard. It's really hard with Jimmy. I'm really curious to see what he looks like in another environment with another coaching staff and another offense and another team, because there was flashes. There was a reason the Niners spent a second round pick on him. He looked good when he was in New England. He looked good with the Niners. He's had some bad moments as well. But the only thing we really know about Jimmy Garoppolo in the environments he's been in with 2 really good coaching staffs is that he's not as good as the greatest quarterback of all time, and he's better than like Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. There's a lot of space in there. Like, how good is Jimmy on best ever or a QB3 in the NFL? That's
well, we know he's better than the QB3. Yeah.
So now, well, actually, Jacoby, he was above him on the depth chart in New England, and I think so. But man,
yeah,
it's really hard. It's really hard to know exactly how good Jimmy Garoppolo is, which is why I want to see another quarterback in Kyle's system with the same team around him, and I want to see Jimmy Garoppolo in another system, just so we can really figure out who these guys are.
Well, if your predictions are correct, you'll see Jimmy Garoppolo on another team come Wednesday, and you'll get to see him in Indianapolis, which I think is kind of built similarly to the 49ers in the sense of the type of guys that they like. Run first offense. You got Jonathan Taylor, just hand the ball to him 30 times a game. You got Michael Pittman, big receiver. They got to add a couple more guys as far as weapons go, but they want to lean on that defense and Buckner and Leonard and all those guys and more in the secondary. I think if Jimmy's going to be successful, it's going to be with the Colts. I don't know how much I like him going to some of these other places.
You definitely aren't bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo because he's going to save you. You're going to bring Jimmy Garoppolo because he's going to work with your system, and he's going to get the ball out in 2.5 seconds and get you into the right play, which might be a run play sometimes. And you've got a good team around him. You've got a defense. You've got an offensive line, a running game. That's the Colts to me. They could probably use some better rack players, and we'll see what they do in the draft. Maybe add some speed to that offense, add some playmakers there. But yeah. The Colts feel like the right spot. So we'll see if the Colts can make it happen.
I think Jimmy Garoppolo, just off of who he is, he's 2 games better than Carson Wentz. And if he's 2 games better than Carson Wentz, the Colts are a playoff team.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And the Colts believe that too if they want to move off of Wentz and go get Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
which is why they probably have to
Right.
pay at least the price or more of what they got in return for Carson Wentz. If with that logic, and the Colts don't have a first round pick to go draft Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett, right? So they're going to be drafting whatever they get in the second round, or trying to package some picks to go up and maybe get in front of the Lions at pick 32 or something like that, late round one if they don't. And so then you're spending even more draft picks when you could spend fewer picks, get a guy that's probably better for you to win week one right now, and spend the rest of those picks on some other players to help you be better. So it seems like that's where these things are going. Croc, have you been watching The Wire here to make sure we haven't missed anything? Did Jimmy Garoppolo get traded as we're speaking? It's funny because we talk about all this. There's some this is what happens every time. There's some crazy dark horse team that nobody talks about that's going to shock everybody. It's like, oh, what? That team is the one? So I can't wait for those moments. And the 49ers haven't had many of those yet.
So far, we are good. I see Zay Jones signed with Jacksonville, I believe.
See here, perfect example. Jacksonville cornering the market on paying mediocre players. So they're just
Well, 49ers had to do that year one of this regime, right? Go out, PR Garcon, Aldrick Robinson,
they didn't have to.
Malcolm Smith. I mean, but it's like you got to like pay all this money for these guys.
They could have signed good. They could have signed Allen Robinson instead of Marquise Goodwin and Jet McKinnon, and there was a lot of head scratching moves at first. Although I will say it takes two to tango, so a player has to want to go to where you're at, and that's what the Jacksonville Jaguars are going through right now. Is they have to overpay the guys they bring in. The guys they really want probably are telling them no, and unfortunately they don't want to be drafted number one again, so they're having to pay too much for mediocre players just so they can climb to the middle of the league. And so that's not really a great place to be, but that's where the Jaguars are right now. And the 49ers were kind of in that boat, and they brought in guys that knew the system and could help build the system. And hey, I guess you can't say it didn't work because the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl a few years later. All right, we got to go, guys. I know there's a lot of questions about a lot of players. We'll get to more of those guys. I do like James Daniels. Daniels a free agent? He's not a free agent, right? Bears offensive lineman James Daniels, super athletic guy, a center guard. I liked him coming out of the draft a couple of years ago, but he's not already a free agent, is he?
I don't even know who that is. I'm gonna be honest. Sorry, guys. I don't know who James Daniels is.
I think he was out of Colorado. Was it? He was really athletic. Yeah, he's a free agent. Wow, we're getting old, Croc. I feel like that was 2 years ago. It was 2018. He was drafted in the second round, 39th overall by the Bears. Really super athletic interior offensive line, could get out and move. He's still only 24 years old. I like that name a lot.
Wow,
James
young.
Him on the free agent market. Didn't realize he was a free agent. That's a great fit for the 49ers. Can play a little center, a little guard. He's super athletic. I think he would fit Kyle Shanahan's system well.
I get a little worried when teams just let young offensive linemen go like that, because there's just not very good offensive line. There's not a whole lot of good offensive linemen around the NFL. So you let a young guy like that's super athletic, you just let him go. Not ideal. Now, maybe it's the Laken Tomlinson effect, where he's not fitting in with what you want to do, and maybe he'll be better suited somewhere else, and the 49ers can pick up this super athletic center, and he come in and he plug and play, and it's all pro. And 49ers are extremely happy about it. But it does worry me a little bit because the offensive line play around the league is kind of down.
And he started all 17 games for the Bears last year. If someone who's played that much for your team and you're ready to let him walk, I feel like the Bears got to try to do a deal with him, because the Bears have talked about how they want to get more athletic on the offensive line, and they want to be able to do more of that stuff that the 49ers do on offense. He graded out okay at Pro Football Focus. I'm looking at his grades from last year. And I know the Bears had a bad offensive line, but if you're trying to get more athletic, and this is one of the guys who actually played okay for you last year, why are you letting him walk? Interesting. But yeah, that's an option I like for the 49ers if he comes at a price that makes sense. The league is starving for offensive linemen, Croc. You're right. I mean, if you're just letting a guy walk, that probably doesn't say a lot about you, unless you're getting top of the market money that
especially
you just
on the team. And we said this about who was the center the 49ers signed from the Giants?
Weston Richburg.
Yeah, remember it was like the Giants offensive line was really bad, but they let him go, and I feel like it's that kind of situation all over again. The Bears are a team that gave up 9 sacks to the Cleveland Browns, and they're letting the offensive lineman walk. So I don't know. I haven't watched them, so just kind of my logic.
Iowa is where James Daniels came from, not Colorado, as I said. Iowa too. That connection, right? Niners love going to Iowa. All right, done deal. James Daniels. That'll come right after the Stephon Gilmore signing, which will come right after the Jimmy Garoppolo trade, right, Croc?
Yep. James.
By the way, I don't think there's a huge market out there for DJ Jones. I think he's coming back. I think he's coming back.
That'd be good.
Yeah. And
all right, I got to cut.
All right, Croc's got to go. I got to go. Thanks everybody for jumping in on the live chat. Croc and I will be back tomorrow, another Winky Wednesday right here